Okay, lads, in this episode I'm going to do a bit of spring cleaning of my mind palace. What the fuck is he on about now? Spring cleaning is fucking what? I mentioned in an episode or two ago there the idea of a mind palace, usually a memory palace, whereby people store memories. And I'm going to use that analogy to further my own thinking and to organize my own thinking. So I'm going to use the analogy of my brain being a building with floors in it and different rooms. Okay? And I want to spring clean the whole thing. So like I outlined in a previous episode, I'm not going to pick a room and sort that room out until it's perfect and then move on to the next room and do the same. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to generally organize all the rooms so that none of them are perfect, but all the rooms collectively are just in a better state than they are now. Now, there's a couple of things scattered across the rooms that I want to try and organise possibly into the one room. And I think the one room might be called aspirations or goals or dreams or something of that sort. Okay, so aspirational thinking, goal setting, where you want to be in 10 years, all that kind of thing. Mixed in there is the notion that your actions have consequences, yours and mine. Small and big. What time you get up at, what time you go to bed at, what you eat for breakfast, what you do for a living, macro and micro, big and small things. People power is another big component of this. And one of the main motivators for me to do this whole off the lead thing is to empower people. And again, as always is the case nearly, when I say people, I not only include myself, but I mean specifically myself. The more of this that I do, the more articulate I become, the clearer my thoughts are, the bigger my questions are, the more I understand, the more I realise I don't understand, the more I realise that I'm only getting started, no matter how much more information that I take on board and no matter how much of that information that I can assimilate and I can make sense of and can make congruent with my worldview, the more of all of that happens, there's a net benefit for my life and therefore a net benefit for the people's lives that are listening and the people's lives that I'm more intimately connected with, friends, family, colleagues, associates, whatever, you name it. So you're going to have to indulge me a little here as I try and run around a couple of the rooms in my mind and grab a couple of things that I think shouldn't be in that room and maybe should be better positioned if they were all put in one room, if that makes any fucking sense. So in relation to dreaming and aspirations, I mentioned in a couple of episodes ago my aspirations for this podcast. So I kind of went best case, worst case, which is what I tend to do. So worst case scenario, I don't know, nobody listens, which wouldn't be the worst thing because at least then I get the benefit out of it. So that's not really a worst case scenario. Okay, worst case scenario is exactly that. It's worst case scenario. So worst case scenario for me would be I get thrown in jail. Basically, that's worst case scenario for me. I admit to breaking a law or several laws and I get fucking arrested for it. Or I encourage other people to break a law, or I break some sort of broadcasting regulation and I get a big massive fine. I don't fucking know. But again, this is all worst case scenario. I don't worry about worst case scenario. I always try and think of what they are so that you don't go and do something too fucking stupid. But alongside worst case scenario, you have to have best case scenario. So if worst case scenario is nobody listens and I get arrested, best case scenario is that everybody fucking listens and I get fucking paid out of it. Okay? Speaking of which, how am I going to get fucking paid out of it? So I'm going to flesh that out a little bit, my view for kind of off the lead. Okay? I said a couple of episodes ago that best case scenario would be me with, hundreds of thousands of listeners all over the world, which would be fucking great, don't get me wrong. But way before that happens, I need to make a living out of this. Okay? There's only so far you can take something part-time. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do something part-time and take it fucking amazing places, but you'll never take it there as fast, and you'll never take it there as well, and you'll never really do it unless you commit to it full-time. And in order for me to realistically plough on and continue to do this full-time, I need to earn an income from it. How am I going to earn an income from it? Okay, so there's a couple of things. There's what's called affiliate links. Okay, now affiliate links are essentially name dropping of products and product reviews. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to do an episode on how great my Galaxy S10 is and all the bits and bobs and the processor and the speed and the pixel quality and the screen size and fucking blah, 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 all that nonsense, and get paid off a Samsung for it. Fuck that noise. You'll never catch me doing shit like that. But what you will hear me say is, I don't know, I bought a bike before and I bought it off Spun Cycles. Best cycle shop in fucking County Meath. Okay? And I'd love to extrapolate that for everything that I do. Okay? I'm currently wearing an Off the Lead t-shirt, believe it or not. And hanging on the back of my chair is an Off the Lead pull-up. Okay? Now, I've started wearing these, or Self got them for me for my birthday there last week. Shout out to herself, on the boys and up the lads. Cheers, wifey. Delighted, love them. Merchandise, selling that kind of stuff would be the next thing. But anyway, getting back to the affiliate links, that's one avenue of making money from this. It's promoting other products and getting paid off the back of that. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, I'd only do it for stuff that I really wanted to either have myself, or that I had. Not that I would really want it myself. I wouldn't promote something that I really wanted myself. I'd promote something that I believed in. And when I say believed in, I mean that it's ethical. I won't promote something that's made in China and marketed by some guy in Pakistan and gets shipped here from Amazon and ends up in the fucking high street here. Okay, that's not what I'm about. I'm also not a utopian. So I will promote something that, let's say, mightn't be made in Ireland, which wouldn't be ideal. But if it's better than the norm, then I'm fucking all over it. I'm a big fan of incremental steps. I'm not a utopian. Okay, I don't have a vision for how the world could be perfect, but I do have a vision how the world could get better incrementally over time. But anyway, that's affiliate links. So there's money to be made in promoting other products, basically. The next one then is merchandise. As I said, I'm currently sitting wearing an Off the Lead t-shirt, and I've a Off the Lead zip up on the back of my chair. She also has an Off the Lead hat running around the place here somewhere. But anyway, the reason that I'm wearing those is because they've essentially become my uniform as of yesterday. I put the t-shirt on, I put the zip up on, and I walked out to the studio and I started recording. And there was something about it. There was something about essentially putting on the uniform. It made me feel like I was getting ready for work and not getting ready to go out into the back of my van and fanny around with my recordings for a while. Okay, it structured it. I can actually kind of see a bit of a reflection with the polycarbonate screen that I have in the studio here, and I can see my logo on my t-shirt. Now, I can't really read it because it's backwards with the reflection. But anyway, it just focuses me. It legitimizes what I'm doing to a certain degree. Or at least it feels as though it's legitimizing it. And it just makes the whole thing a little bit more official. And when you have a uniform to put on in the morning, it gives you a bit of, or it can, or it could, or it should give you a bit of purpose. But anyway, so selling that shit, the merchandise, that will be another potential income stream for the podcast, whether it's a hat or a pen or a t-shirt or a hoodie or God knows what else. I love the idea of making stuff. Like, I'm handy enough with my hands, and I can make this. I might actually throw up a photo of this. I made this little thing. It's a trick thing with a nail. There's no point in even talking about it. I'll upload a picture of it, and check out the Off the Lead Facebook page and Off the Lead Official on Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. These cunts. But anyway, I'm going to stick up a picture of the thing that I made to get across the type of merchandise that I might be able to flog to people who want to support me. Anyway, so that's two elements of sponsorship that's a possibility for Off the Lead. Sponsorship specifically, there's a dodgy one. Like, I could get a sponsor. I could get a company or a person who, let's say, liked what I was doing. Let's say there's a fucking billionaire or a millionaire out there who has money burning a hole in his pocket, like all multimillionaires and billionaires do. They're mad to throw their money at people, by the way. They just don't either have the time to look into it, or there's not enough profit in them. People who tend to get massive amounts of money tend to be greedy bastards, and greedy bastards don't tend to give that money away unless it's going to result in getting even more money back. But anyway, there's plenty of fucking philanthropic, is that a word? It is now. There's plenty of philanthropic people, philanthropists, who are keen to fund people who are making positive change in the world, as I would like to argue I'm at least striving to do. Now, taking money from somebody like that is a bit dodgy, because they agree with everything that you say until you say something about, abortion or divorce or race or IQ or family planning or something. I tend to not really have any limits to what I talk about. And in relation to getting somebody who would sponsor me to talk about anything I wanted, including things that they didn't agree with, isn't particularly likely. But anyway, it's a possibility. There's another type of sponsorship that I've gone down before, which is the Patreon. I will be definitely getting that Patreon back up and running. I don't know if I'm going to give people the ability to give me a monthly amount, which is probably key to a Patreon account. I think maybe one-offs might be a bit better, because with a one-off payment, so let's say instead of you giving me a £5 a month, okay, for however long you decide to do that, if you were to give me a £50 once-off thing, that would sit better with me personally, because what happened to me the last time when I did push the Patreon was I had half a dozen different people giving me everything from €1 to 20 or 30 quid a month, and it made me feel like I owed these people more and more content because they were paying every month regular, and that put pressure on me, and I didn't like that. But if somebody, instead of doing that, was to say, do you know what, I've been listening to this cunt every day or every other day for the past 2 years, I'll happily give him fucking 50 quid. Fair play to you, lad. I can graciously take that money and go, happy fucking days. I've been paid for what I've done. I'm not being paid for what I've promised to do, because being paid for what you've promised to do puts pressure on me to do it. Now, it's different if I've committed to doing it full time. It's different. If I've committed to doing it full time, I've committed to doing it full time, and I'm going to do it full time. But it's a bit squirrely. The other thing then is, on YouTube in particularly, there is what's called a partner program. So you basically get into bed with Google, who own YouTube, and you get paid on the back of the amount of views that your content creates. So if I've got thousands of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views on my content on YouTube, I can get paid directly from that. So there's 3 or 4 different avenues there that I can actually get paid from this podcast. Why the fuck am I talking about how I'm going to make money from what I'm doing here? It's in relation to dreaming. It's in relation to goal setting. It's in relation to getting to where you want to be. And if you don't think about these things, if you don't think about these things ever, they'll never come about. It starts by thinking about it. It progresses to telling people about it, which is essentially what I'm doing here now. It's getting this out of my head and into the internet. And it's not even into the internet. It could be out of my head and into the fucking pile of grass in the corner of my lawn. Okay? It's getting it out of my head is the most important thing. And even just talking the way I'm talking here, I'm tidying up all these rooms in my fucking brain, or in my mind palace, or whatever way you want to phrase it. Okay? So in relation to blowing up the whole off the lead thing and making it into something, like, realistically, what are you talking about here? Or what am I talking about here? I envisage a day when I need a social media person, a full-time person employed 40 hours a week dealing with my social media, promoting all my posts, promoting all my episodes, generating clips from previous episodes, setting up new channels, dealing with YouTube and their partner program, dealing with other companies who are sending me stuff to promote, somebody to kind of manage all that social media end of things. I can see me employing somebody in that role in the future. Now, that may or may not never happen, but I tell you one thing, it's certainly never going to fucking happen if I don't even have the thought in my head beforehand. Okay? Everything starts with a bit of an idea, okay? Your actions have consequences, as I said at the outset. The next thing that I'm thinking about is, it's great. At the minute, I'm literally sitting in what is essentially an extension on my house. Okay? It's a room that's sitting in the back of my van parked up at the side. But from my position here, there's 4 walls, a ceiling, 2 doors, and a light and sockets, and it's warm, and it's relatively quiet, or quiet enough at least. It's an extra room in my house, so it's fucking fantastic. And I can drive it to whoever I want. I could drive it to Cork, I could drive it to Galway, I could drive it to Belfast or Dublin, or anywhere in between, and in a COVID safe manner, and by sticking to the guidelines, because sound production like what I'm doing is deemed as an essential service. I must actually rhyme off the legislation. Actually, I'll do that exactly now. 2 secs. Okay, I found it. So I'm just going to rhyme this off here, lads, just so you know how I'm going to, or how or why I think I'm considered to be an essential service during level 5 national lockdown. Okay, this work quote, this work falls under information and communications on the list of essential service providers on our new public health guidelines. Okay, here are the guidelines. Here are what falls under information and communications and are deemed essential services. Okay, the publishing of newspapers, journals and periodicals, as well as video, television program production, sound recording, radio and television broadcasting, wired and satellite and telecommunications activities, internet and cloud providers, data centers and related services, end quote. Okay, the sound recording part of that includes me. Okay, so I personally am going to deem myself to be an essential service as far as traveling the country and interviewing people. But anyway, that aside, I want somebody to... Yes, I was saying about the mobile studio. It's great having this, and it's great having the green light, basically, to go about doing what I'm doing, even though it's level 5. And if it works during level 5, it works during level 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. But anyway, what I'm in now is crude but effective. Okay, it's not soundproof. You can probably hear the fucking cars passing on the road behind me. It's not going to make a massive difference to the quality of the sound, but it's not exactly professional level quite yet. And it's certainly not professional level. Like if I told you that I can meet you at your house with a professional level recording studio and I rocked up at what I had, you'd be like, professional? That's a bit of a fucking stretch, because realistically it's a load of fucking insulation that I glued together and hung curtains up on, and you know, it's shoved together and it's a bit shit. Now don't get me wrong, it's fucking deadly and I love it, but it's very much a prototype. Okay, the future of the whole off the lead thing and me hiring people to manage my social media, etc., that won't be based around me traveling the country in something I built myself. Okay, the idea of blowing this whole thing up is that I get a company who makes sound recording studios, make one on wheels that I either tow behind me or I actually drive in. Maybe I'll end up buying a fucking bus. Do you know, kind of way, and getting it converted by professionals to soundproof it and all the rest of it. That's the plan. Without thinking about these things, they'll fucking never happen, lads. And the beauty of this is I can get this not only out of my head, but out there into the fucking ether, where I can hopefully get some more feedback from you cunts about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and how better to further on the whole thing. But getting back to what I said originally, this episode was going to be about dreaming, about goal setting, about your actions having consequences, and about people power and empowering people and empowering myself. Okay? By talking about this and by making my aspirations public, you make them a little bit more tangible. You make them a little bit more real. Okay? And if I was to dream about the success that this podcast could potentially have, those dreams are going to be more well defined. Those dreams are going to be more realistic. Those dreams are going to be easier to achieve, because once you've clarified it in your head what direction you're heading in and what you want to achieve, you've half a chance of making it happen. Now, this isn't visualize it and you'll make it yours. This isn't, the law of attraction or the secret or any of that fucking nonsense. This boils down to your actions have consequences. That's what this boils down to, okay? And my actions have consequences. I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you now in my mobile, COVID-safe podcast studio if 3 years ago I hadn't just said fuck it and started recording conversations with people. Okay, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing if I hadn't told people before I even started recording podcasts that I wanted to. Okay, get your hopes and dreams out into the real world and see what happens. Maybe they'll be shot down. Maybe they'll be encouraged. Most likely you'll get a bit of both. But you have to examine as to why they're being shot down and why they're being encouraged. You have to have a think about what are the people who are telling you it won't work. What's their history like? There's another saying that I love. The best indicator of future performance is past performance. So if you're telling somebody that you dream about being the lead singer in a band, a rock band or whatever, and they say, oh God, yeah, that's not going to happen, pal, like, you know, forget about that. Ask yourself, what has this person a history of saying? Do they kind of turn up their nose at anybody who wants to better themselves? Because if they do, then fuck them. Okay? Because they're just being themselves. They're not addressing what you're saying. They're just being themselves. But if that person has a long history of encouraging people and saying, you fucking go after it, man, you do it. But with your idea now in this moment, they're saying it mightn't work. Maybe it's time to go, fuck, this guy's usually pretty positive. Is he just having a bad day, or am I missing something? Do I need to listen to this cunt? Does he know something that I don't? But again, all that should do is help you further flesh out your dream, flesh out your idea, and bring it one step closer to becoming a reality. And that could be anything. That could be you doing what I'm doing. Okay. And speaking of doing what I'm doing, personally, I think everybody should have a podcast. I think people should have a podcast like people have a Facebook page, or maybe not a Facebook page, but a social media presence. So most people these days have either a Facebook page or an Instagram or a fucking TikTok or a fucking Twitter or whatever the fuck it is, or they have them all. Okay, I see podcasting as being the same. I think that everybody should have their own podcast in the same way that everybody has some form of social media presence. And it shouldn't be to, you know, get loads of listens and get loads of downloads. No more than your Facebook page should be about getting loads of fucking likes and loads of shares and loads of comments. The utility that's in them, in all these platforms, is that it's an outlet. It lets you get what's in your head out there. And whether that means it gets shot down or glorified or a bit of both, it doesn't matter. The fact is that by putting it out there, by putting it under the microscope, by lifting your head above the parapet, your ideas will be scrutinized. And that's a good thing. Okay, provided you're not just inundated with a load of negativity. And if you are, that's a red flag in itself. Who are you fucking hanging around with? Who are you talking to? Are you surrounded by fucking losers? A lot of people are. So, at 22 minutes, I need to wrap this up. Your actions have consequences, okay? Don't do things that disagree with what you're all about. You'll never catch me in a fucking McDonald's. Never, okay? You'll never catch me in a McDonald's, because that is fundamentally opposed to everything that I stand for. And by being in it, I tarnish everything that I say in my day-to-day life and on this podcast and on this platform. Okay, so thanks for indulging me in that. That's after getting a little bit clearer in my head, I think. And I'll chat to you soon.